Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been so kind that people started expecting you to be available all the time? Have you ever felt drained because you kept saying yes when you really wanted to say no? Quote, being kind is a fundamental virtue, one that strengthens relationships, fosters goodwill, and creates a positive impact on the world. However, kindness without boundaries can quickly become self-sacrifice, and self-sacrifice without wisdom can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and even manipulation. There is a fine line between being compassionate and being taken advantage of, and it is essential to understand that true kindness involves knowing when and how to set limits. Many people grow up believing that in order to be a good person, they must always be agreeable, always available, and always willing to help others, no matter the cost to themselves. Society often reinforces this idea, praising those who go out of their way for others, while sometimes overlooking the consequences of such behavior. The problem arises when kindness is mistaken for blind obedience, and when being nice becomes an expectation rather than a genuine choice. Without healthy boundaries, kindness can lead to exploitation, where people assume they can depend on someone indefinitely without giving anything in return. When someone is overly kind, they might start feeling obligated to meet the needs of others, even at their own expense. This happens in personal relationships, at work, and even in everyday interactions. A person who constantly says yes to every request, even when they are exhausted or overwhelmed, eventually finds themselves drained. Their time, energy, and emotional well-being suffer because they have allowed others to dictate their limits. Unfortunately, once people get used to such limitless generosity, they start expecting it rather than appreciating it. There is also the danger of people confusing kindness with weakness. Some individuals, knowingly or unknowingly, take advantage of kind-hearted people because they see them as easy targets. They may push responsibilities onto them, take their time for granted, or even guilt-trip them into doing things they don't want to do. Over time, the kind person begins to feel undervalued and unappreciated. Instead of being recognized for their generosity, they are often expected to continue giving without question. This cycle is not only unhealthy, but also unsustainable. In relationships, a lack of boundaries can be particularly harmful. A person who is always giving, always available, and always prioritizing others above themselves may attract individuals who do not reciprocate that care. Over time, they might notice that their relationships feel one-sided, where they are constantly putting in effort while others take without giving back. This imbalance can lead to feelings of being used, unimportant, or emotionally depleted. A truly healthy relationship, whether romantic, familial, or platonic, requires mutual respect, and that includes respecting each other's time, energy, and emotional well-being. At work, the effects of excessive kindness can be just as damaging. Employees who never say no to extra tasks, who always step in to help colleagues, or who never push back against unfair treatment, often find themselves overwhelmed with responsibilities that others avoid. While being cooperative and helpful is a valuable trait, there is a difference between teamwork and being taken advantage of. If someone constantly stays late, takes on extra work, or agrees to every request, they may find that their generosity is seen as an expectation rather than an act of goodwill. Over time, their workload increases, their stress levels rise, and they risk burnout. Ironically, the same kindness that once made them valued can turn into a burden that negatively affects their performance and well-being. Understanding this does not mean that one should stop being kind altogether. Instead, it means that kindness must be balanced with wisdom. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone at the expense of oneself. It is about making thoughtful decisions about when, how, and to whom kindness is given. It involves recognizing that saying no does not make a person selfish. It means being intentional about where and how kindness is directed. It means recognizing when someone is taking advantage of generosity and having the strength to step back. It means understanding that one cannot pour from an empty cup. If a person constantly gives without refilling their own emotional and mental reserves, they will eventually have nothing left to give. By creating healthy boundaries, people can ensure that their kindness remains genuine and impactful rather than forced and draining. They can build relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. They can contribute to their workplaces without feeling overburdened. Most importantly, they can maintain their own mental and emotional well-being, ensuring that their kindness is sustainable rather than exhausting. The ability to say no is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop, yet many people struggle with it. From an early age, society teaches that saying yes is the polite, considerate, and cooperative thing to do. Whether in personal relationships, professional settings, or social interactions, there is often a sense of obligation to agree, to be accommodating, and to meet the expectations of others. However, constantly saying yes without considering personal limits can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of self-identity. Learning to say no is not about rejecting people or opportunities. It is about protecting one's time, energy, and well-being. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to say no is the fear of disappointing others. They worry that declining a request will make them seem selfish, rude, or uncaring. This fear is deeply rooted in a desire for approval and acceptance. Many people associate saying no with rejection, believing that if they turn someone down, they might damage the relationship or be seen in a negative light. However, this mindset can be harmful because it prioritizes external validation over internal well-being. In reality, a strong and healthy relationship, whether personal or professional, should be able to withstand a respectful no. Another reason people hesitate to say no is the guilt that comes with it. They feel responsible for the emotions and expectations of others, often placing other people's needs above their own. This can create a cycle where they keep agreeing to things they do not want to do simply to avoid guilt or conflict. Over time, this habit can lead to emotional exhaustion, stress, and even resentment. When a person keeps sacrificing their own priorities and well-being just to keep others happy, they end up neglecting themselves. The reality is that no one can please everyone, and trying to do so only leads to burnout. Saying no is essential for maintaining personal boundaries. Boundaries define what is acceptable and unacceptable in relationships, work, and daily life. Without clear boundaries, people may find themselves constantly overcommitted, struggling to meet their own needs because they are too busy fulfilling the demands of others. Boundaries are not about shutting people out, but about creating a healthy balance between helping others and taking care of oneself. When a person learns to say no, they establish limits that protect their time, mental health, and overall well-being. At work, the inability to say no can lead to being overwhelmed with responsibility. Many employees feel pressured to accept every task or request from their boss or colleagues, fearing that declining work will make them seem uncooperative or unmotivated. However, taking on too much can result in decreased productivity, increased stress, and even job dissatisfaction. It is important to recognize that being valuable in the workplace is not about saying yes to everything, but about managing time and workload effectively. When an employee knows their limits and communicates them clearly, they gain respect and prevent themselves from being overburdened. In personal relationships, saying no is just as important. Many people struggle to decline requests from friends or family members, even when they feel overwhelmed. They may feel obligated to help, even at the expense of their own well-being. While it is natural to want to support loved ones, constantly saying yes can lead to resentment and imbalance in relationships. When one person is always giving and the other is always taking, the relationship becomes unhealthy. Learning to say no allows for a more balanced and respectful dynamic where both individuals' needs are considered. There is also a misconception that saying no means being unkind or selfish. In reality, saying no is an act of self-respect and honesty. When a person says yes out of obligation rather than genuine willingness, they are not being truly kind. They are acting out of pressure. True kindness comes from helping when one genuinely wants to, not from feeling forced. When someone learns to say no confidently, they can offer their help in a way that is sincere and sustainable, rather than exhausting themselves by trying to be available all the time. Another important aspect of learning to say no is recognizing that it creates space for more meaningful opportunities. Every time a person says yes to something they do not want to do, they are indirectly saying no to something else, perhaps something that aligns more with their goals, priorities, or values. Time and energy are limited resources, and if they are spent on unimportant or unfulfilling commitments, there is less room for things that truly matter. By being selective with their yes, people can focus on what is most important to them, leading to a more fulfilling and intentional life. Ultimately, saying no is not about rejecting others. It is about valuing oneself. It is about recognizing that self-care, priorities, and mental well-being matter just as much as the needs of others. It is about understanding that personal boundaries are necessary for healthy relationships and a balanced life. When a person learns to say no with confidence and without guilt, they gain control over their time and energy, allowing them to be more present, effective, and genuinely kind in the ways that truly matter. Self-respect and priorities play a crucial role in shaping a person's overall well-being and success. Many people believe that being kind means always putting others first, sacrificing their own needs, and accommodating everyone around them. While kindness is an admirable trait, it should not come at the cost of self-respect. Prioritizing oneself is not selfish. It is necessary for a balanced and fulfilling life. Without clear priorities and a strong sense of self-worth, people can easily find themselves overwhelmed, manipulated, or stuck in a cycle of trying to please everyone while neglecting their own goals and happiness. One of the biggest mistakes people make is equating self-sacrifice with kindness. There is a common belief that to be a good friend, partner, employee, or family member, one must always be available. However, when kindness is given without limits, it can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of personal identity. People who constantly prioritize others over themselves often feel drained, unappreciated, and unfulfilled. Their time and energy become consumed by obligations that do not align with their own values or aspirations. Self-respect begins with recognizing one's own worth and setting boundaries accordingly. It means understanding that personal needs, feelings, and goals are just as important as those of others. When someone respects themselves, they do not allow others to take advantage of their kindness or dictate how they should live their lives. They make decisions based on what is best for them, rather than out of fear of disappointing others. A person with self-respect is able to stand up for themselves, voice their opinions, and say no when necessary. They do not feel the need to constantly seek approval or prove their worth by overextending themselves. Setting priorities is another essential aspect of maintaining self-respect. Every individual has limited time and energy, and if they do not prioritize wisely, they can end up feeling lost and unfulfilled. Many people struggle with this because they feel pressured to meet societal expectations or live up to the demands of others. They say yes to commitments they do not truly care about, spend time with people who drain their energy, and put off their own dreams to satisfy external pressures. Without clear priorities, life becomes reactive rather than intentional, leading to frustration and a sense of being stuck. One of the biggest challenges in prioritizing oneself is dealing with guilt. People often feel guilty when they put their own needs first, fearing that they are being selfish or neglecting their responsibilities. However, there is a significant difference between selfishness and self-care. Selfishness is about disregarding others entirely, whereas self-care is about maintaining one's own well-being so they can be in a better position to support others in a meaningful way. A person who constantly sacrifices their own needs for others will eventually burn out, and when that happens, they will have little to offer anyone. Taking care of oneself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect and sustainability. In professional settings, self-respect and priorities are equally important. Many employees struggle with overcommitment, agreeing to extra tasks, staying late, and taking on responsibilities that go beyond their role. While hard work and dedication are valuable, constantly putting others' demands ahead of one's own boundaries can lead to stress and burnout. A person with self-respect knows when to say no to unrealistic expectations and understands that their well-being is just as important as their professional responsibilities. They focus on what aligns with their career goals rather than feeling pressured to please everyone around them. In personal relationships, having clear priorities and self-respect ensures healthier and more balanced interactions. When someone constantly gives without receiving anything in return, the relationship becomes one-sided and unsustainable. People with self-respect do not tolerate toxic or unbalanced relationships where their kindness is exploited. Instead, they surround themselves with individuals who respect their time, value their presence, and contribute positively to their lives. They do not feel obligated to maintain relationships that drain them emotionally or mentally. Instead, they invest in meaningful connections that align with their values and bring genuine fulfillment. Another key aspect of prioritizing oneself is learning to focus on personal growth and fulfillment. Many people put their own dreams and aspirations on hold because they are too busy meeting the expectations of others. They work in jobs they do not enjoy, stay in relationships that no longer serve them, and live according to societal norms rather than pursuing what truly makes them happy. People with self-respect recognize that their time is valuable, and they use it wisely by pursuing goals that align with their passions and interests. They understand that in order to live a meaningful life, they must be intentional about how they spend their time and who they allow into their space. Understanding the balance between kindness and self-respect is crucial. True kindness does not mean saying yes to everyone and everything. It means making choices that align with one's values, maintaining emotional and mental well-being, and being selective about where kindness is directed. A person who respects themselves sets boundaries, focuses on their priorities, and refuses to allow guilt or external pressure to dictate their decisions. They understand that being kind to oneself is just as important as being kind to others. Not everyone deserves your kindness, and recognizing this truth is essential for maintaining emotional well-being and personal integrity. While kindness is often seen as a virtue, blindly offering it to everyone without discernment can lead to exhaustion, manipulation, and even a loss of self-worth. Society encourages people to be generous, forgiving, and compassionate, but not everyone reciprocates these qualities. Some individuals take advantage of kindness, viewing it as a weakness rather than a strength. Understanding that kindness should be intentional rather than automatic allows people to protect themselves from being used, mistreated, or taken for granted. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with this concept is the belief that kindness should be unconditional. They feel obligated to be polite, helpful, and accommodating to everyone regardless of how they are treated in return. However, kindness should be a conscious choice, not an automatic response. There is a difference between being kind and being a doormat. Being kind means offering help, support, and understanding to those who appreciate it and respect you in return. Being a doormat means allowing others to take advantage of you simply because you feel obligated to be nice. When kindness is given indiscriminately, it loses its value and often benefits the wrong people. Certain individuals do not deserve your kindness because they do not respect or appreciate it. Some people see kindness as an opportunity to manipulate and control. They exploit the goodwill of others for personal gain, taking without giving anything in return. They rely on others' generosity to avoid taking responsibility for their actions, expecting continuous understanding and forgiveness no matter how poorly they behave. In these situations, continued kindness only enables toxic behavior. When someone repeatedly disrespects your time, energy, or emotions, responding with kindness does not change their behavior. It only reinforces it. People who take advantage of kindness rarely change unless they face consequences for their actions. Another category of individuals who do not deserve your kindness are those who bring negativity into your life. Some people thrive on drama, criticism, and conflict, always looking for ways to bring others down. They dismiss kindness as weakness, using it as an opportunity to exert control or boost their own ego. No matter how much kindness you show, they respond with hostility, resentment, or indifference. Investing kindness in these people is emotionally draining and unproductive. Instead of appreciating it, they use it against you, making you feel guilty, unworthy, or powerless. Recognizing this pattern and choosing not to engage is an act of self-preservation. Now, there are also people who take kindness for granted. They assume that no matter what they do, you will always be there to help, support, or forgive them. They rarely acknowledge your efforts, and when they do, it is often in a superficial or dismissive way. These individuals expect kindness but do not reciprocate it. They do not value your time or energy, only seeking you out when they need something. When kindness is given without appreciation, it turns into an obligation rather than a genuine expression of goodwill. People who fail to recognize the value of kindness do not deserve unlimited access to it. Kindness should be reserved for those who respect and appreciate it. Genuine kindness thrives in mutual respect, where both individuals acknowledge and value each other's efforts. When kindness is given to the right people, it strengthens relationships, fosters trust, and creates meaningful connections. When given to the wrong people, it leads to frustration, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion. Learning to be selective with kindness does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or generosity. Setting boundaries around kindness is crucial. Many people fear that if they stop being kind to certain individuals, they will be seen as rude, selfish, or unkind. However, protecting oneself from manipulation, toxicity, and unappreciative individuals is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. Just as financial resources should not be wasted on things that have no value, kindness should not be wasted on people who do not appreciate or respect it. A person who continuously drains your emotional resources without giving anything back is not someone who deserves your kindness. Understanding that kindness is a privilege, not a right, helps in making better decisions about where to invest emotional energy. Just as you would not give unlimited access to your time, money, or personal space, your kindness should also have limits. People who truly value kindness will respect these boundaries, while those who only seek to exploit it will disappear when they no longer benefit from it. Recognizing the difference between those who deserve your kindness and those who do not is a skill that leads to healthier relationships and a more balanced emotional life. In conclusion, kindness is a valuable trait, but it should not be given indiscriminately at the cost of self-respect, priorities, and emotional well-being. Not everyone deserves your kindness, and it is important to recognize when it is being taken for granted or exploited. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone, but about making intentional choices that align with your values and protect your peace. Setting boundaries, prioritizing yourself, and being selective with your kindness ensures that your generosity is directed toward those who truly appreciate and respect it. Stand firm in your self-respect, value your time and energy, and do not hesitate to walk away from those who do not deserve your kindness. Choose wisely, and you will build stronger, more fulfilling relationships while maintaining your own happiness and integrity. Good luck on your journey to balancing kindness with self-respect. Thank you for your time, and may you always find the strength to prioritize yourself while spreading kindness where it truly matters.